Broken Lines. Is it worth a buy? Let's read the words of the developer. Broken Lines is a story-driven tactical RPG set in an alternative history version of World War II. It's a game about a group of 8 soldiers who crash land behind enemy lines. It's up to you to lead them home while fending off the enemy and helping them deal with the horrors of war. Before I start, guys, I have not reviewed this before. I did a video on this 2 weeks ago, but that was just a preview. This is a full-on review, having completed the game today. And a few of you have been complaining about, you know, I've done lots and lots of tactical strategy games over the last few weeks, and it's pissing people off. So anyway, guys, this is Broken Lines, a tactical strategy game. I don't care. And it's a story about 8 soldiers, British soldiers that you control throughout quite a horrific story. But before I get into any of that, let's have a quick look at the old graphical settings and what have yous. There's not a huge amount of graphical options for this game. It doesn't really need a huge amount. It has enough. It has a bloom disabler. That's the main thing. You can disable bloom. I left everything as standard for this, just to see how it would run from the off, and had absolutely no problems whatsoever. I think the most important of the options is the difficulty. It's got a really neat difficulty setting. It's got basic, easy, medium and hard, but you can tweak each one of them, which I really like. You can decide pretty much how the enemy AI is going to react, what they can and can't do, and what specifically types of enemy you're going to run into, which is a really neat touch. Another thing that is probably very important is if you die in this game on normal or hard, it has permadeath pretty much. You can resurrect once, but then that's it. If you die again, you're dead, and that's indicated by a skull and crossbones on the avatar of the specific soldier that's already died once. Now that is enabled by default on medium, but if you go to easy, you can switch that off. So the story is you were flying on a mission, your plane gets shot down over an unknown country, you crash land, you all spread out and split up, and the prologue is kind of you meeting up with your friends. You can't really screw that up, it's pretty easy, it's just kind of linear how you will meet up with everybody, and then it's game on after that. You've got to decide what you're going to do. Are you going to just try and escape, or are you going to investigate some sinister things? And the story is quite sinister. It does have kind of Nazi connotations a bit with internment camps and things like that. So it does kind of reflect a bit of that. But to be honest with you, it's nothing like a World War II story. It's kind of like, I don't want to spoil it, but some of the enemies are not... they're a bit... You know what I'm saying? Now once you get all you guys together, you're sitting around a campfire and you've got to decide what missions you're going to do. Sometimes there's only one mission to choose from, but more often than not there's 2 and sometimes even 3 missions that you can choose from on the map. And once you've chosen a mission, that will lead you to a different area, so you can't go back and do the others. This is where the replayability of this game comes into. I'll talk a bit more about that later on. But you select your mission that you're going to go to, and then you choose which members of the squad are coming with you. Usually you can only take 4, but sometimes you can take 5 depending on how hard and how big the mission is. You can equip different things to different people. Nobody is specifically a sniper, a shotgunner or anything. It's just they are what you give them the gun for. They don't have stats as such, but if you give somebody a sniper rifle, they'll be a damn good sniper. So generally what I usually take, and it's just entirely up to yourselves, but I always take a couple of machine gunners, definitely 1 sniper. If I get the option of 5, I'll take 2 snipers, 2 machine gunners and a shotgunner. I think a shotgun is essential for the close quarters and buildings. Snipers go without saying, and you definitely need suppressing fire of machine guns. Now the guns that you get in this game, it starts off with the standard shit. You'll have Lee Enfields and Sten guns, pretty poor, but it's not long before you'll get a PPSH, which was my favourite gun of World War II. You'll get the Tommy gun, you get some really nice sniper rifles as well, later on scoped sniper rifles. You get bazookas that you can fire, you'll get rockets that you can fire from your rifle, you get different types of grenades, concussion, explosive and big explosive grenades, smoke grenades. You get a whole load of different weapons that you can arm yourself with. You also get a lot of traits or perks, if you like. Some of them are set in stone for that character. Some might be good, some might be bad. But as you go through the story, you will unlock new ones, and some of these are very, very handy. They'll give you extra cover. They'll make it harder for you to be spotted. They'll give you extra speed. They might give you faster reload. There might be a proc, whereas if you get shot, you can reload faster. Some might make it harder for you to stress, and I'll talk about stress in a sec when we get talking about the actual combat. So there's a lot of stuff to think about when you're going out on the missions, and thinking about what your mission is as well is important. Now, to get all of these things, you go to a shop. It's this traveling guy who will sell different things, but the same thing that he sold on one mission probably, well, definitely won't be there the next mission. So you've got to kind of decide, do I buy this now or do I wait and hope there's something better comes along? On my first playthrough, I kind of made a few mistakes. I kind of just bought everything up and better shit came along, and I didn't have any salvage to buy it. You get salvage by raiding chests in the actual map. You have to keep a lookout for them, and it's well worth going to get them. There's also random encounters that you can have before you actually again go into a mission. These are text-based events. This is the RPG elements, and it's kind of like a situation it puts you in, and you decide whether you're going to do answer A or B, and they do have repercussions, so be careful what you choose. Now onto the actual combat. When you get into the map, you'll see you guys on the screen, and it uses a WWII system, which is pretty much means that you do a planning phase and then you press a button and everybody moves together, hence WWII. A bit like if you remember when I reviewed Battlestar Galactica, that uses exactly the same system. The enemy move as well when everybody goes when you press that button. So all your planning happens and all the enemy's reactions will happen as well. Now, if you haven't spotted any enemy and you're just moving and an enemy is spotted, the game will automatically pause, allowing you to redo your moves, which is fantastic and very, very essential. The combat is, like I say, it uses the WWII system, but when you're moving your guys into position, you can only move them a certain distance. You can see that by the dotted line. Once the line becomes dotted, that means he will not move, or she will not move there on that particular turn. I say she because, as I mentioned in the preview, there are women in this. It's an alternative World War II, not the real World War II. I think that was just kind of, I don't know. Look, this was funded by the European Union, so what the f do you expect? It does kind of take away a little bit of the immersion when you hear women screaming and dishing out orders on the battlefield. I personally hate it. I'd much prefer it to be way more sticking to history, but it is what it is. Now, the combat itself is great fun. The way you can use strategy is so different in this. You can kind of be the stealthy, sneaky, meticulous guy, or you can just rely on shock and awe, which is exactly how I've played this game all the way through. And you can do that. I haven't done it on hard, but I've done it on medium, did it today, and I just blasted my way through using shock and awe. And the way you do that is you utilize what's called the stress mechanic. Every player, the enemy and yourself, are vulnerable to stress, which means if you're getting shot at, you will see a little orange line under your health bar start to rise. If that gets all the way up, you will panic and run around like a prick. So that happens a lot, and if you can put a lot of fire on an enemy, you can easily get them to break cover, run around with their hands up in the air, making it very easy to kill them. Obviously, in the earlier stages, the weapons are so shit they can take a lot of bullets before they go down, but once you start getting the really good stuff, you can put them down really, really fast. The AI generally is pretty good and will give you a good run for your money, simply because of the advantage places that the developers have put them in, but some of them, for some inexplicable reason, will suddenly just charge towards you when it is clearly the worst thing that they could possibly do, and they just get gunned down. That's a bit of a shame, and I would like that to get patched, but it doesn't really spoil the game because not every enemy does that. In fact, a lot of them will retreat if they're taking too much damage or stress, which can be a pain in the arse because it leads you into more enemies. You've got to watch out as well for special enemies. They might be snipers, grenade launchers, bazooka guys, and the enemy will throw grenades at you as well, concussive grenades and explosive grenades. There's also kind of bosses. There's a big tank that you have to fight at one point, and my goodness, I got myself into a right mess with that. I was not expecting it, and I almost got wiped. Now, there's 21 different maps in this. Now, You won't play them all on your first playthrough because you can't play every mission on your first playthrough. This is where the replayability comes into this. You can well, I've done a playthrough in a day. Probably do a full run through on 8 hours, but you'll want to do it again. The first thing I did when I finished it was I wanted to do it again because I wanted to buy the different weapons that I'd missed, and I wanted to do the different missions that I've missed. There's no procedural generation in this either. Every map is handcrafted, and you can tell. Because the amount of times I was calling the developers bastards when I was playing this, because they just you could tell that it was designed. It's designed to get to you. It's designed to be hard, and the game can be very, very hard. Another reason you might want to replay this game is multiple endings. It has multiple endings based entirely on the decisions that you make, and these aren't just decisions that you make when you run into people. These are decisions that are made on the tactical map in the sense of when you choose your mission, because certain missions can kind of be a bit cruel to certain people. I don't want to spoil it, but you will have to make some decisions on whether you go down this route or down that route, and they will all have repercussions as to how the game ends. Another thing that I forgot to mention on the actual combat, you'll notice as you're looking, you will see green and red percentages as I'm moving my mouse around over the top of enemies. What this is telling you as a player is if you move your guy to that position, that's the kind of chance he'll have to hit, or she. I keep forgetting. Damn, I can remember, it's 2020. It's crucial that you pay attention to this, absolutely crucial, and especially if you're using the shock and awe charging in tactics that I use. You have to make sure that the people are going to get decent percentage hits, because if not, you're going to get wrecked. Because when you're doing the like charging in, flanking maneuvers, you need to take them out fast, so you want high percentages in that. Using abilities as well, certain abilities will allow you to hit harder at certain moments or to not receive as much damage. So all of that stuff has to be taken into consideration. And there's one last thing I want to mention. You need to buy supplies. You need supplies every single day that you are alive. Each man will take one supply a night, and you have to sleep every evening. So if you run out of supplies, people will desert, and each person has their own morale, and you've got to keep them up there by doing the right decisions and buying enough supplies or finding it on the battlefield. So there you go, guys. A lot to take in. There's a lot to take in. It's a very deep game. It's a fun game. It's got a pretty decent story. I would have preferred it if they'd stuck more to World War II, but it is what it is. It's great fun. It's £20, and it's kind of like a contrast to Tor that I reviewed yesterday and the day before. This has the content. Yeah, each run might only be 8 hours, but if you only do one run, you've only played half the game. That's the thing. At least I would estimate there's 3 runs in this game. I think I could do 3 runs and then that'd probably be done. So definitely get your money's worth. It's great fun, not easy, but fun.